Hey, what's up guys, aarava here and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're talking about tips for beginners for F1 2020. Now, I know what you're thinking, aarava, you're no expert, you shouldn't be giving out tips. I'm not giving the tips today, thankfully for you guys at home. In this video today, I'm going to be doing a collaboration with a fellow Veloce esports member, Veloce James, or James Baldwin as you might know him. He's the world's fastest gamer. Via the competition, he's won a real-life drive in GT cars. He's actually driving for Jensen Button's team, and if you're familiar with the racing esports scene, you've probably heard of his name crop up a few different times. He's a very diverse driver, but one of the games he does race on is F1 2020. So if you go on to enjoy the video and find it quite informative, then be sure to hit that like button and let us know in the comments below, and definitely go check out James's YouTube channel. I'll have a link in the top line of the description. Like I said, he's a big name in the kind of racing esports world, and also kind of, you know, trying to break through into the real life sporting world, and with that, he's making content along the way, be it virtual or real life, so definitely go check out his content. But without further ado, I'll hand it over to him, and here are your tips on how to get better at F1 2020.
Hello aarava's viewers, I'm James. I do some sim racing, some real racing, I do a lot of driving on the F1 game, and that's why I'm here today on this video. I'm going to hopefully tell you a few things that are going to make you a little bit quicker. So today I'm going to talk about 5 major points that are going to make you a bit quicker on the F1 game. First one being shifting. Now this is an easy one to kind of incorporate into your game. 11,800 RPM is the optimum point at which you want to shift with the engine. Anything above or below, you're kind of wasting your time. Unfortunately, obviously, if you've got an automatic gearbox using the assist, you can't do this, but it's only a marginal gain. I thought I'd get it out there nice and early. Let's get on to the next one. So the second point is braking. Very important. You need to stop the car as efficiently as possible, and the way I would do it is the way I do it, and I'd brake at 100% on the initial part of the braking zone, go to 3 to 4 gears down very quickly, then start coming off the brake, turn into the corner, and go down those final few gears at a slower pace than you went down those first few gears at. And then you're in the corner, obviously, so then you start looking to the exit. But it sounds a bit complicated, but when you do it in the matter of seconds that you do it in, it makes sense. And obviously there's footage to kind of show you how to do that. But yeah, that is the general gist of braking. So the key thing with braking is to do everything smoothly. The downshift, the braking, everything. Because if you don't, the balance of the car becomes unpredictable. Hence, it ends in oversteer, understeer, or at worst, a spin or a crash. If you're running ABS, then don't worry, it's not the end of the world. It will reduce your stopping power ever so slightly. But I mean, George Russell used it in the virtual Grand Prix, and he weren't too bad, was he? So, you know, don't worry, you're not at a massive disadvantage if you do run ABS. So this next point is absolutely huge, and it's rotating the car with the throttle. Now this, without doubt, is the hardest thing to do in F1 2020 if you want to be quick. If you want to do this to the maximum effect, you really, ideally need traction control turned off, because you can really do what you want with the car. There's no limitations by the assists, but it's more risky. You know, you can end up spinning, as aarava has clearly shown you in previous videos. So this technique is most effective in slow corners, and the way you do it is when you're in the corner and you're trying to rotate the car. If you want to rotate the car, apply 30 to 50% of throttle depending on what corner you're in, and then when the exit starts to present itself to you, start to accelerate more and go through the gears really quickly to avoid wheel spin, and this is basically known as short shifting. So this trait seems to be far more important to incorporate into your driving in F1 2020 compared with F1 2019, because there's been a massive physics change. So the fourth major point we're going to look at is race starts. Now these are a lot harder to perfect compared with F1 2019. One of the reasons for that being that when you're on the grid and you're trying to modulate the throttle to get the right RPM before you go, it's far more sensitive, so you need to be a lot more accurate with your foot or your trigger, depending on what you're using, to hold it on the right RPM. It's really hard to do. So ideally you want to be at 12,000 RPM, around that, when the lights go out, and then what you want to do is go and then back off the throttle a little bit whilst going into 4th gear. And once you're in 4th gear, you should have traction because you're in a higher gear, and you should be able to kind of plant the accelerator, and whilst you're accelerating, go through the gears really quickly. So if you don't get traction, just back off the throttle a bit and wait till you do, and then go. It's very odd, and it's not realistic by any stretch of the imagination, but it's helped me escape a lot of carnage in public lobbies, which is always important. Quick thing to note with the starts, make sure you're in the right fuel mode, so rich, and if you're in overtake mode, that's going to give you a massive advantage. So I know it's using that ERS up, but it's still worth doing just to escape a lot of the carnage. Okay, so the final point is the race deployment of the ERS in F1 2020. Now, in this game, it's a completely new challenge compared with F1 2019. So, in a way, yes, they've made it a little bit easier because you've only got to use 2 modes instead of 5 in ERS. However, I feel like there's a different challenge. So the overtake mode in the ERS in F1 2020 is absolutely insane. It gives you an insane amount of power, however it drains extremely quickly. So I've got a nice little technique I use before every race just to ensure I've got a little bit left at the end, which you could need. So this will require some form of mathematical ability. So basically what you need to do is, say if you've got 20 lap race, divide 100% of ERS by 20 laps, that's 5% of ERS per lap. And try and aim for that, because you'll know then you'll have ERS at the very end of the race. And of course it doesn't sound like a lot, but you got to remember the car does recharge its battery every time it brakes, so it's not that bad. Now obviously in a race there's so many different scenarios that could result in you using more or less ERS. For example, if you're trying to do the undercut, you're going to want to use more to get track position, or if you're in a battle and you're losing touch with the leader and there's a slower car ahead and you want to get past, you can use it there, then you'll gap the car once you've passed him. On the flip side of the coin, if you're behind the safety car, you're going to save a lot more ERS. So of course there's different scenarios out there where you're going to use more or less, but if you have a good benchmark, say if you're in clear air, then you can't really go wrong. So the way I'd recommend you use that ERS is out of slow corners, but only once you've got traction. If you don't have traction and you use it, there's far too much power for those rear wheels to cope and you will spin. So that's the way I would use it. Instead of using it at the end of a straight where you're not going to get as much time from it, you need to save as much as possible, because unfortunately for you lot and me, this stuff don't grow on trees. But today that is all we have time for. So a big thank you to Mr. aarava for letting me come on your channel and show this ugly mug to all of you lot. It's been a real honour. But I hope you enjoy the game F1 2020. I think it's a big leap forward from 2019, which is the most important thing. I'm certainly going to enjoy it. I have my own channel as well. Maybe go and check that out. And of course, like this video. That would be much appreciated. But yeah, I guess I'll see you lot whenever.
So those were James's 5 tips for getting better at F1 2020. Like I said at the very start of the video, hopefully those of you who are very new to the Formula 1 games found it genuinely quite informative and useful in some sort of way. Obviously, it's not a thorough kind of in-depth kind of way. I've had to literally drive every bit of the car, but just giving you some helpful tips and kind of things to think about potentially whilst you're driving around on F1 2020. And actually, before we round out the video, I want to add just a 6th one to this, and this is more for if you're doing career mode. I guess player to player, it'd still be useful, but I think it's going to be massively useful to you guys at home if you're playing career mode, and it's to do with the setups really. So I've already mentioned it before in my team career mode episodes, but when you go to the setup menus, one big factor of this year's game, which is so important, are the tire temperatures. And you're going to want to look at the tire pressures, and you're going to want to lower them pretty much at every single circuit, more so than others. You're going to have to be doing a bit of testing here, because some circuits, they're a little more abrasive than others, but you generally want to lower the tire pressures. That's going to open up the surface area of the tire that's actually on contacting the part of the road, and ultimately reduce the temperatures as the load you're putting into the tires is, going across that larger surface area. So the tire temps, and importantly that internal carcass temperature, will be a little bit lower because of that. And that's very important, especially if you're doing more than a 25% race, a 50% race. If the internal carcass temperature goes, it's very hard to pull that back. You have to really let off for a good lap or two to really cool them down, and that's going to lose you so much time versus AI and also in league races and whatnot. So definitely look at lowering the tire pressures, not all the way to the end. I think that's a little bit extreme, but in some cases, perhaps if you want to go that extreme, but just generally lower them by a few 3-4 clicks at most circuits. Feel it around a little bit. Some circuits, like I would say, like Spain, definitely maybe the front left, you want to lower it a little bit more than the front right, and generally the kind of corners where you're being loaded more on heavier fuel, you want to look into that, but generally speaking, lower them, because if you don't, in general, you may not face a massive issue all the time, but you'll start to see a pattern of when the tires do get a little bit too hot, out of that working range, you'll find it harder and harder to get the car turned in, or you'll just hit too much oversteer as well if the rear start to light up a little bit too much as well. So that's going to be it for this brief beginner's guide on F1 2020. Like I said, hopefully you guys found it informative, those of you who are new to the F1 game. If you did, hit the like button, let us know about it in the comments below, and if you want to see more collaborations potentially with James, then let me know in the future, because obviously it's the first time working with him, but I've known him for a while now. Top lad, really great esports player, but in a very unique way. Even though he's an esports player, he's also quite a good content creator, he's got quite a good camera presence. So if you want to see more content with James maybe in the future, then maybe pop some suggestions down below of more things you might want to see in terms of tips tips or just different content or whatnot. And like I said, go check him out. Link top line in the description. And if you're new around here to this channel, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. Hope you guys enjoy us today. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.